Thanksgiving to all of you across the country. You got Skip coming to you live from Los Angeles. Like most of you, I just watched my Dallas Cowboys somehow outlast the New York Football Giants 27-20, and I just watched my man, Micah Parsons 11 from heaven, take a huge bite of turducken live on Fox and then say, "We coming," as in we coming to make the playoffs, as in do my heart good, as in get me amped on Thanksgiving night. I didn't eat my Thanksgiving yet because I was afraid I might throw it up if my Cowboys lost to the Giants on the biggest stage in all of professional football, this side of the Super Bowl or any big AFC, NFC championship game. Every year, this game rates the highest. I don't know what it'll do this time because we were down to the third string New York Giant quarterback. After the first string quarterback was cut by the franchise, he's now a Viking. The Giants are now 2-10. So how much are we going to read into what we just saw? Because it, unfortunately, almost sadly came down for me. I was getting nauseous. I was. It came down to 3rd and 2 at the 38-yard line of the New York Football Giants. And we, with 2 minutes left, had to convert, or they were going to get the ball back with a chance to do to Tom Brady up in the booth what they did to him twice in Super Bowls. He had one funny line. He said, I never feel safe with the Giants around. I like that. That was his line of the year so far. Very ironic line because obviously Eli got him twice in Super Bowls, and I still have not gotten over Eli getting sacked, it looked like about 7 times before he closed his eyes, put his hand over his eyes, and threw it as far as he could. And somehow it got caught against a face mask by David Tyree. Is that his name? Tyree? Yeah, that didn't sound right. David Tyree, how quickly I forget. That was then. This was now. It came to this for my Dallas Cowboys. But as sad as it was to have to convert 3rd and 2, we did convert 3rd and 2. And you know why we did? I saw on Twitter, it was X now, it was trending, Trey Lance over Cooper Rush. Baloney, no. And I love Trey Lance, and I loved him before the draft. But I'm here to tell you, what has just happened is we won 2 straight games. We have the 4th easiest closing schedule in the NFC. A schedule I'm looking at, I'll get to it in just a second here. We could sweep. We could close out winning, let's see, it'd be 1, 2, because we won last week at Washington, obviously. Last Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We could win our last 7. We could get to 10-7. We're 5-7 now with 5 to play. But here's the point. On 3rd and 2 at the 38, when we absolutely had to have it, and I immediately tweeted, is the 2-minute warning, throw it to Schoonmaker. At least he's like 6'6" and long. He's like Gronk. He's not Gronk, but he's got Gronk's sort of catch radius, as Brady kept saying during the game. Just throw it to him. He's got pretty good hands. Throw him one up high if he can go up and get it. Let him play basketball and shield somebody off, box somebody out. I thought that was the play. And it was Cooper Rush to Brandon Cooks. It gave us a touchdown that looked like it was an insurmountable lead, but not for this team, not at home. But this was Brandon Cooks on 3rd and 2, and it was a really good throw where only he could get it, and a really good catch by a really clutch receiver who's played with Tom Brady, who's been in this league for a long time, who just came back today after missing 2 months. I'm not saying he's a difference maker, but he's a big-time, proven, quality receiver who won't choke. And the point was, Cooper Rush made the play that had to be made because that's what he does. He threw no interceptions for the 2nd straight game. He got sacked 0 times for the 2nd straight game. He operated the offense effectively and efficiently for the 2nd straight game. And we won a 2nd straight game because if you want to go here, I hate this term, but he was the ultimate game manager the last 2 weeks. And I will give you this. He's been a little off, and it's been a whole lot disturbing to me because I keep waiting for him to break out. He got his knee close to torn up. They said it was shaky whether he's even going to play today. I don't know if he needs cartilage cleanup. But he sucked it up and he played. He doesn't move around anyway, but he did what had to be done to beat a bad football team on the biggest stage in the sport this side of the playoffs. That's what he did today, and that's what I believe he can get on a roll and do. And I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But he had a partner in crime at home. And I'm going to frame this by telling you and reminding you that my Dallas Cowboys had lost 6 straight home games while allowing almost 40 points a game. Nobody makes a big thing of it. They didn't make a big thing of it on Fox today, and I don't know why. They keep defending Mike McCarthy. I'm going to get to him in just a moment. I don't know why. Because he is, everybody keeps saying he's a great footballer. I'll get to that in a second. But the point was, Mike McCarthy has been the head coach of teams that have allowed almost 40 points a game for 6 straight home games. It's the worst 6-game stretch of home games in NFL history. I dare you to tell me I'm wrong about that. I dare you to find a worse stretch than 6 straight games, starting with the Green Bay playoff game last year, down 27-0 at halftime, just before halftime. Down for, 48-32 was the finish, but we'd given up an average of almost 40. It was 39 points something. I'm going to round up to 40. We'd lost 6 straight. No team had lost games by 20 or more points for 5 straight home games. In our 5 straight home games, we had averaged, this with Dak at quarterback for the most part, we had averaged 13.8 points per game in 5 straight home losses this year, 0-5 at home. So you got to frame it with that. Even though it was the Giants, it was like we had a home hex. And by the way, speaking of hex, I got to, my wife Ernestine goes crazy when I tell these stories, but this is the God's truth story today. That game turned on an incident I had with my daughter, our Maltese, Hazel. She's my good luck charm. She hadn't been very good luck for my Cowboys this year, but I needed her today, as Ernestine says. She's your Buddha. Okay, so I have my little white Buddha with me. And I told Hazel before the game, I need you to stay with me for this whole game because we need this one just to make it right, to break the home hex, just to get back in the positive, where you start to feel like that there's a reason for being here, even though it might save Mike McCarthy's job. So I've got Hazel, and the second half starts off, it's still a close game at halftime. What was it, 13-10? And I posted and tweeted, I was disappointed. I thought the game should have been over at halftime, but it wasn't. But then all of a sudden, Kendrick strips Drew Lock. Ball's loose, Overshown recovers, and all of a sudden we got it 1st and 10 at the 38, and we start to move the football. Rico Dowdle, key to that. I'll get to him in just a second. But all of a sudden, I'm eating something at halftime. I forget what I was eating, a protein bar. And Hazel's looking at me like, don't I get anything? And I said, okay. You've been sitting here for all this whole game, through that whole long halftime, it's endless Thanksgiving halftimes. And I said, okay, I'll get you a treat. So I had to go through the door of my little man cave, if you will, and I had to go through the door into the kitchen to get one of her treats. And as I came back, I look up and Cooper Rush is running for a touchdown, and he's diving. Brady blasted him for it, and I thought he was just selling out. He was just trying to go. He was giving his body up because we can't score in the red zone. He just said, well, I'll take it. I'll try it on my bum knee. And he dives, and he gets stripped, and the ball's loose in the end zone, and they recover for what looked like a touchback. And I'm thinking, my God, we are hexed at home. And at that moment, I'm trying to watch, and I'm giving Hazel her treat, and I leave the door open, and she bolts. She bolts. And I'm like, oh, my God. And she runs out the door. She hadn't even come back in the door, so technically she wasn't in my room to be my good luck charm. And now she's run all the way back and found Ernestine back in the back of the house. And I have to run back there. And I said, do you want her? Do you want to keep her for the rest of the game? Maybe that'd change my luck. I don't know. But she wasn't in the room. And all of a sudden, Cooper Rush fumbles. Ernestine's watching the game by herself. She won't watch with me because I'm too much of a psycho. And she said, look, just take her back because she's not going to be happy here. Even if you leave her here, she'll be here for 5 minutes and then she'll want to go back with you. So I pick her up like in my arms. I take her back in. And just as I go back in, my luck changes and pretty much the whole season changed because they review the fact that Cooper Rush's knee was down. That's the turning point in the whole game. And then he hits Brandon Cooks on a long crossing route across the back of the end zone. Sweet throw, nice catch. And all of a sudden it's 20-10 with 11:37 left in the third quarter on a way to look like we were going to blow them out. Well, we didn't do that. But now back to Rico Dowdle. Today was the first day that I looked at Rico Dowdle and I said, he's obviously not any Saquon. He's obviously not any Big D as in Derrick Henry, who should be a Dallas Cowboy. But you know what? He gives you an honest day's work. I'll give him pretty good. He gives credibility to a running back core that has been the worst in all of pro football the whole year. They have been dead last the whole year until now. And he finally, for the first time in his career, went over 100 yards. And I'm going to remind you, he was once upon a time an undrafted free agent who stayed all 4 years at South Carolina. He goes 5'11". He's a bigger banger of a back. He's 215, so I like that. But he ran 4.55 40 I guess in his pro day workout. I don't think he went to the combine because he was undrafted. But he's been with the Cowboys now. This is his 5th season. And all of a sudden, I sat back today and I said, he's growing on me because he's credible. He gives you a chance because he gives you such an honest day's work. He runs as hard as he can run, and he has some ability to run the football and sometimes catch the football. So all of a sudden, we have credibility there. And for the first time all season, Micah showed up. He flashed all over my screen. I like to see 11 flash to the point that he says, we coming after the game. And I'm saying, well, mostly you've been going because I have to file missing Parsons reports every week to even find Micah. Obviously, the Giants tackles, they've lost their best one, but they're just not very good. The Giants offensive line is not very good. Drew Lock was mostly running for his life because Micah, the big dog, could eat like he hasn't been able to eat all year. And he was all over Drew Lock. And by the way, Drew Lock, he's got one thing going for him. This is one thing I knew about him when he was at Missouri. And I didn't like him before the draft. I said, there's no way I'd take him even in the second round. But they did, the Denver Broncos, because he ran 4.69 in the 40 at 6'4", 230. That's pretty good. And you saw it twice. It manifested today. The one early in the game, he got loose. That looked like a touchdown to me, but they banged it in from the half-yard line. But then late, he runs for another touchdown, and that's what he can do. He's got a pretty good arm. He just isn't poised. He's not accurate. He's no good. But the point is, he can gash you with his speed if you let him get unfurled, unleashed, if you let him escape. And they did early and then late. And at 6'4", 230, he can run through people if you give him a head of steam. But Micah showed what Micah could still be. And maybe he's a front runner, but maybe he can start to front run now. And I'm going to remind you, they now have their mini bye. They get their 10 days off to get these people healthy. DeMarcus Lawrence, if he could come back after the bye, be a huge. If you got those two as bookends, you got a shot. Trevon Diggs, Josh Butler got hurt today. I don't know the outcome of that, but it did not look good. Wanye Thomas got hurt today. It did not look good, but he doesn't play regularly on defense. He's more special teamers. He's the one who was calling the fake punts that did not work. But God bless him. God bless Josh Butler, who sort of came from nowhere. He'd been out of football basically for almost 4 years. But the point is, Trevon Diggs almost played today with some kind of groin/knee injury. Well, surely if you give him 10 days, he'll be back. If you'll give CD 10 days, he's got an AC joint in his shoulder. He hurt it at Atlanta. He sucked it up and played in the fourth quarter at Atlanta. Cooper Rush threw him a deep ball at the goal line that he just couldn't lift his shoulder up enough to catch. It was right in his breadbasket. And then today, in the biggest shock to me, the only reason the game stayed that close was that CeeDee Lamb in the first half dropped 3 footballs right in his hands. And the crusher was 7:26 left in the second quarter. It's 3rd and 1 at the Cowboy 44, and he's just wide open, and Cooper Rush hits him, unfortunately, right in the hands. Dallas is up 13-7. I think we're on the way to 20-7, and maybe the dam breaks, and all of a sudden it goes to a big blowout route. But no, CD kept them in the game in the first half, and I don't know what was plaguing him. He has the most catches. He came in with the most catches in football coming into that game. And CeeDee Lamb, I still think he's the best receiver in football, would drop 3 passes today in the first half against that team with chances to just end them. The game should have been over at halftime. He was the biggest reason. It wasn't. And then he rolled over on his shoulder on a ball he didn't catch in the third quarter, and he just said, I'm out. Done. Give him 10 days. I bet he sucks it up, and I bet he gives us a shot because now that Brandon Cooks is back, and they featured Jonathan Mingo today. He can run. He's a big kid who can run. Didn't really detonate today, but all of a sudden I'm saying, okay, if you give me Dowdle, and if Jake Ferguson, I don't know his concussions, he's got a concussion, but if you give him 10 more days, could he come back and switch out and alternate with Schoonmaker? Okay, now you got some firepower, even for Cooper Rush. I know he doesn't have a huge arm, but it's pretty good. It's good enough. He knows how to play football. So you give me that, and all of a sudden I say, I got a chance. If you give me Hazel for a full game, I got a chance. When I brought Hazel back in today, it saved the season because all of a sudden my luck changed and his knee was down and we still got the ball and it's touchdown to Brandon Cooks. And that felt like it broke it open 20-10. And yet, it still took 3rd and 2 at the 38 to finish the game, which brings me to Mike McCarthy. I don't get it. So now I've had to hear Troy Aikman on Monday night and Tom Brady on Thursday evening. It's probably night for you. It's evening out here in Southern California. But I've had to hear both of them fiercely defend Mike McCarthy by saying Mike McCarthy both use the word, he's a great football coach. And I'm out of my mind. What are we doing? Did Jerry put them up to this? I mean, Troy loves Jerry. I don't know what Tom's relationship is with Jerry, but obviously Tom's now an owner in the National Football League, so he wants to do the right thing with everybody, including Jerry. He can't say anything very negative about anybody, but he's defending Mike McCarthy today, and I'm losing my mind. I'm about to fall out of my chair. I'm about to lose the Thanksgiving dinner I still haven't eaten, lose my protein bar, because Mike McCarthy's not a great head coach. Mike McCarthy presided over 6 straight annihilations and embarrassments at home. You can't find a worse stretch of home football in the history of the National Football League. I did a preview yesterday of this game, and I said, and I'll reiterate, that go back to what most people consider the worst team ever in the history of the league, the 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers coached by John McKay. Go look it up. See what they did at home. It was better than the Cowboys were over these last 6 games, and they lost all 6 games at home, I believe. I think they went 0-14? Maybe they lost 7 home games. But the point was, you go look at the score. They were competitive about 4 times at home where it was a fairly close game. Then go look at, you could make the case this was the worst team ever because this was a flat-out expansion team. My Dallas Cowboys in 1960, their maiden voyage, their first year in the National Football League, They were pretty horrible, and they were competitive at home 3 or 4 times. They lost every year. They went 0-11-1. But go look. So I'm saying Mike McCarthy presided over all that nightmare, starting with the Green Bay playoff loss, and he's a great Are you kidding me? Seriously. Is he a good X's and O's offensive coordinator? Is he a good offensive strategist? I'll give you he's pretty good. I still think he was a product of Aaron Rodgers at his greatest. This is going back, Tyler, what was it, like 14 years ago? 14 years ago that they got to as the road wildcard team. They had to win 3 times on the road, including at Chicago when Jay Cutler couldn't go in the second half and wound up riding the bike, and it was the immortal Caleb Haney. And Aaron Rodgers was pretty awful in the second half, nearly threw a pick 6 to Urlacher, but they survived, and then they thrived against Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl at Jerry World. I guess that won Jerry over that day to see Mike McCarthy win him a Super Bowl ring. You know, Jerry loves old Mike Mack. I'm stuck with Dak and Mike Mack. But the point is, it was 14 years ago. And then if you look at his last 3 years in Green Bay, they were horrendous. And he pretty much got run out of town. There are all the stories about on Fridays, he was getting massages instead of being out for the workout. I don't know. So he's got a Super Bowl ring, and Jerry loves him like a son, and that's why he's still the Dallas Cowboy football coach, head coach, and yet there's no commander in him. There's no CEO in him. There's no natural-born leader in him. There's no motivator in Mike McCarthy. And the truth was about today, I tweeted from the start, once again, we weren't really ready to play at home because New York took the ball right down and scored after we couldn't cash in a touchdown on our opening drive. It's 3-0. All of a sudden, they make it 7-3. That's shameful. That's Mike McCarthy at his worst. That they never come out ready to play at home. And I'm convinced the only reason that they play so much better, they're 4-2 on the road. The only reason, and they lost by 6 and 6 in their 2 road games at San Francisco and at Atlanta, and played okay in both games. They hung in, they fought. It's because they get motivated by the road crowd. They come out and it's like people are booing them, heckling them. They're the most hated team in football by far, especially when they're struggling. And everybody's down on Dallas, and they rise to the occasion because they're inspired by the hate on the road. Well, obviously, there's not nearly that much. There might be a few scattered boos at home, but at home, they're supposed to win, and they just crumble because they're not motivated. They're not ready to play. They need external motivation from something else other than Mike McCarthy. So I almost wish they finished every game on the road, but they got home games. So think about this. 10 days to get ready for Joe Burrow in Cincinnati at home. Obviously, the Bengals have struggled all year long. They got 2 things going for them. They got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they are really, really, really good because Joe Burrow is the best thrower of the football in all of football. Better than Mahomes, obviously better now than Aaron Rodgers, better than Lamar. But they have little to no defense. They lost Joe Mixon in the running game. And I saw Cooper Rush outplay Joe Burrow. I'm going back now 3 years ago, but I saw it. And it was on a Sunday night at Jerry World in his first start of that year. He had started the one game the year before, remember, against Kirk Cousins on a Sunday night at Minnesota. But he started that game, and he outclutched Joe Burrow down the stretch with 4 straight late completions that set up a Brett Maher walk-off field goal. You don't think Cooper Rush is capable of doing that again? I do. And I love Trey Lance, but he can't do that right now. Can he give you a little more flash and dash? Sure he could, because he's 6'4", 220, and he can run. And he has a huge arm, but right now he's not ready to play the way Cooper Rush can operate that offense right now. So could they beat Cincinnati on Monday night in 10 days? Sure they could. Then they go to Carolina. Okay, I'm chalking it up as a dub. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'll jinx them, but I still like Bryce Young. But I think Dallas is just better than Carolina, and I think they will prove to be better on that day. Then they come back home for another big night game, big stage game. That's Monday night. This is Sunday night. Sunday night, they got Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I bet it will be a highly rated game because you got lots of lightning rod factor with Baker and Jerry and the Dallas Cowboys. Can they beat Tampa on a Sunday night at Jerry World? Sure they could. If Micah gets after Baker, that team is not very good this year. It's just sort of Baker to Mike Evans or bust. They lost Chris Godwin. Sure, Dallas could win that game, okay? That would give them all of a sudden 5 in a row. That would all of a sudden get them above 500. They're 5-7 now. That would get them to 8-7. Then they go to Philadelphia. Obviously, I chalked that one up a long time ago as a big O-L. I only picked Philadelphia to win the Super Bowl is all. And I love them more than ever. Brandon Graham was a big loss for them. But they're really, really loaded with talent and firepower and just flat out nastiness. They got the best defense. They got the best offensive line. But it's a division rivalry. Dallas should have been ahead at halftime of that game. But, of course, CD lost it in the sunlight. Remember that? Cooper rushed right there, and he lost it in the sunlight. Could Dallas go in there and shock them? Maybe. I would give them a shot, especially if they get on a little bit of a roll and get healthier and healthier as we approach that game. Sure, I could see it. And that would leave Washington. It's a flex game right now, so we don't know exactly when it would be, how it would be, what it would be, why it would be. But I just saw Dallas somehow overcome Washington at Washington because Jaden Daniels has struggled throwing the football for 3 straight games. He threw it great in the fourth quarter. They had 223 yards just in the fourth quarter alone, and Dallas went only 2 of 11 on third down, but Cooper Rush did not turn it over. He did not get sacked, and I believe he could play that kind of game again against a still pretty young team that we could beat. Wouldn't shock me a bit. Could we win out? Well, sure we could. That would get us to 10-7. Would that get us in the playoffs? Well, you never know, but probably because there's still a lot to like about this football team. Kevontae Turpin, obviously he's the best returner in football, but I'm starting to see glimpses and flashes, bits and pieces of Mike McCarthy coming to his senses enough to just get him the damn ball in the flow of the offense with little pop passes, just quick screens, maybe a slant here or there. He got loose on the one slant that Cooper Rush threw him. He's such a weapon that you can't throw him deep balls. He can't find the ball over his shoulders. He can catch it if he's standing flat-footed straight on a punt or a kickoff. He's okay with that, although he muffed the one at Washington. It was kind of a weird kick, like a knuckleball. And then he picked it up and hit the 360 and was gone, and so were the Commanders. But the point is, all of a sudden, I'm seeing get Kevontae Turpin involved. So if you give me Turpin and CD and Jake Ferguson back and Brandon Cooks back and cooking again on Thanksgiving and Jonathan Mingo looking like he could contribute. All of a sudden I say, wait a second, this team's pretty good. Its burden, the weight around its neck that drags it down into the depths is the head coach. But they went 12-5 and 12-5 and 12-5 in the last 3 regular seasons. Sometimes you just win in spite of him because you just win with your talent. You have to motivate yourselves. They came alive today enough. I saw enough positive, even though it came down to having to convert that 3rd and 2 at the 38 with 2 minutes left to ice the game against what's left of the New York Football Giants. I'm excited. I'm having a happy Thanksgiving. I'm getting ready to eat some turkey and some dressing. I think Ernestine's got, what are my sides? Corn, green beans. I think we have some rolls. I think she even went and got me a little, they sell near us these little I used to like pumpkin pie. I don't eat sweets at all, but she got me it's a little apple pie. It's like a round apple pie. It's different. It's at an Asian bakery right up the street from us, but they're hot seller. And she said, I just thought because it's Thanksgiving, I'm going to get you one. So just for this tonight, just because I'm finally, for the first time all year, feeling pretty good about them and me, I'm going to eat that little apple pie thing. I don't know. It won't kill me. I ran this morning. I ran hard this morning. I think I can withstand it. I think the Cowboys are about to get hot and get on a roll. We won't be talking much about them for the next 10 days because they'll be the quiet team because they've got their mini bye. But coming out of that, as we build up to Joe Burrow, you better believe I'm going to be beating the drum. So Micah, we coming. It sounds like something I heard from Dion once upon a time, and they arrived. Didn't like what happened in the last game, but they arrived. They're going to play again tomorrow morning, but they arrived. My Dallas Cowboys are coming back. They're just coming back. They're credible. I think they got a real shot at making the playoffs because this schedule sets up to be pretty easy, fourth easiest in the NFC. So I'm having a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you are too, Cowboy Nation, because we won. How about them Cowboys?